I'm Gail, and I'm with Patchwork Plus in Dayton, Virginia. And today, I'd like to show you how to make continuous bias binding. We use continuous bias binding for circular quilts, scalloped edges, anything with a curve that you want to bind. It's stretchy and it'll allow you to go around the inside curves and stretch around the outside curves. So it gives you a nice flat finish. And we're going to start with a yard of fabric. And a stripe is nice because when you want to make this edge like a candy cane Albert border look, it gives you a nice look to use a stripe. Okay, but you have to start without the selvages, so we're going to take the selvages off. If you leave your selvages on, you have issues. Okay. Now this is a yard of fabric, but it's 44 inches wide. The key to this is to start with a square. So the easiest way to find a square is fold the edge until you get a triangle. And that triangle, if you remember your geometry, which I didn't do well, and then I'm going to trim off the extra, because I do want to start with a square. This process won't work with a rectangle. It won't give you bias. Okay. We'll add this to our scrap bin. Now we have a square, and I'm going to leave it folded because I am going to cut on the hypotenuse of that triangle. And you just cut a sliver. Just enough that you cut your folded edges off. So what you end up with is two triangles. Okay, from your square. Now, you want to take this side here and this side here and put them together. So, didn't quite cut away. And this is important. This side here is lined up with this side at the top. So the top and bottom are put together. And you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this odd looking shape that looks like a pair of pants. Cute. Let's go to the machine. Now we're going to sew this 1/4 inch seam allowance with a regular stitch. And again, I'll show you what I did. I sewed the top here with the pants, and you should have about a 1/4 inch dog ear on each end. Now from this 36 inch square, we're going to get 320 inches of binding. A 42 inch square will give you a little over 450 inches of binding. And that's 2.5 inch wide binding. If you cut 2 inch wide binding, of course you'll have a lot. Okay, and we press that seam open, and what we end up with is a parallelogram. Lay it out here so you can see it. Okay. See how the seam goes diagonal? And you've got the straight ends here. So what I'm going to do now, take this parallelogram and fold one of these long edges in and the other long edge in, and it's starting to look like a tube. See how this seam, for the next seam you're going to sew, will be right on top of the previous seam. So you can see that seam is diagonally this way. Okay? So again, the key here too is to start with the 2.5 inches measured or cut, so you know how to line it up. So we're going to just cut that so that we take this corner and match it up, and then this corner and match it up. And it's going to look really odd to sew that together, but trust me, it's going to work. And you'll have this little tail here, and you'll have the same amount of tail on this side. So now we're going to sew again a 1/4 inch seam allowance right there. Okay. Now when we do this seam, it's going to look a little odd. It will actually look like almost a cow neckline, but trust me, it should work if we're doing it right. And you have about a 2.5 inch tail here. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is press that seam open. After sewing that second seam, you'll have what looks like a T. Okay, with the seams that the first one you have sewn would go this way, and the second seam that we sewed, again, line up right on top of the other one. Okay, now we want to press this seam open also. Nice and tight. And now that we have this tube, we can cut continuous strips in a sort of a barbershop pole style fashion. Now that we have this tube with the tail and the little extra on both ends, now at this point some people will take their ruler and mark their 2.5 inches all the way around and use scissors to cut it. You can also take a cutting mat and slide it into the tube and cut your bias strips and just keep moving your fabric. Or if you have a double-sided mat, you can flop it over and cut. And you just continually cut around the tube until you get to the end, and enjoy your binding. Bye-bye.